Hoy vamos a estudiar los nombres de los libros de la Torá. El primero se llama Bereshit, con el Principado los cielos y tierra creó. El segundo se llama Shemot, son los nombres de los hijos de Israel que a Egipto descendieron y luego Elohim los liberó. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. El tercero se llama Vayikra. El Eterno llamó a Moisés, pues quería acercarse al pueblo de Israel. El cuarto se llama Bemidbar. En la estepa Israel peregrinó y muchas pruebas pasaron ahí, pero el Eterno nunca los dejó. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. El quinto se llama Devarim, son las palabras que el Eterno repitió a una nueva generación, y así en su tierra pudieran habitar. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. La Torá es un regalo del Eterno para estudiar. Tiene muchos tesoros que encontrar. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá. Vamos todos a estudiar la Torá.
Hello, nuevo niños. Presents my little Mana. Shabbat Shalom,
friends, in chapter 26 of Leviticus, the Eternal gives specific orders to not have idols or representation of anything that sub subjects the Eternal. It also talks about his days of rest to take care of keeping them for us. It is a sign of obedience to our Father. The Eternal acts of us obedience to his commands, statutes, and decrees. As a consequence of obedience, we will have many blessings for our daily lives. He is pleased with the obedient and rejects the wicked. It is important to keep in mind how fundamental it is to live as the Father wants. There is a list of the blessings that come with obedience to what the Father require of us. The Eternal here shows that his love is not unconditional, because his love is so great that it cannot be taken in vain. Like a wicked son who doesn't care whether he obeys or not. It is disrespectful to believe that you can do whatever you want without consequences. The Father also makes it known that if we disobey, we will have terrible consequences. Here it is up to us to obey or not and abide by the results. Let us always be willing to do what the Father asks of us. How can we not do it if every day He gives us the opportunity to live? The least we can do is be at, attentive, huh? At, attentive to what the Father asks of us. While we breathe, let us give thanks to the Father who has forgiven us through our Master Yeshua. Blessed be the Eternal and his beloved Son, who has called us to his kingdom. Many blessings to all. And this has been my little manna for today. Go ahead, Samantha.
Thank you, Mia. Shalom, little friends. Greetings from Samantha. Let's continue with chapter 27 of Vayikra, where we see the word vote, which in Hebrew comes from 5087, nadar, which means promise, and eventually do or give something to Elohim. Make, pay vows, promise, vow. That is when we tell the Eternal that we will do or give something. When it leaves our lips, it becomes a vow, an oath or promise, and without hesitation, we must fulfill it. In this portion, we learn the value of the votes that the people offer to Elohim. All vows have different values depending on the age of the person, but all vows had to be fulfilled. They could also make a vow using an animal, and the animal given to the Father will become holy. They were not to change it or replace it good one with a bad one or a bad one with a good one. However, no one could dedicate the firstborn of an animal, since the firstborn belongs to Elohim. They could also dedicate their houses as something holy to the Eternal, and the minister judged its quality as good or bad, or a part of his land by family inheritance, and its value would be set according to the amount of seed that will be needed for it. This teaches us that if a person had the desire to give his life or something as a service to the Father, but could not because he was not from the tribe of Levi, a price was set for him. It was given and used for the things of the sanctuary. Little friends, we are all called to ministry, to be holy, to be consecrated, and to be used as an instrument of the eternal. This is why the Father asks us to be holy, because we belong to Him. Everything consecrated to Him, including us, belong to Him. These are the instructions that the Eternal gave to Moshe on Mount Sinai for all the Israelites. This has been my little manna for today.
Shalom, little friends. Greetings from me. Let's review what we learned in chapters 11 to 15 of Vayikra, where we learned about the instructions of bodily purity. In chapter 11, we learned which animals are clean and pure to eat, and which animals are unclean and impure, and we must not eat them. Pure and clean land animals must be ruminants and have a split hoof. For example, sheep, goats, and cattle. The Father also gave us instructions on aquatic animals. These must have fins and scales. If they don't have these two characteristics, we must not eat them. The instructions for birds that we cannot eat are those who are scavengers. In chapter 12, we learned about the impurity of woman after childbirth and how she must go through a time of purification. When a woman conceives and gives birth to a son, she will be unclean for 7 days. On the 7th day, the woman will be purified, and on the 8th day, the boy will be circumcised. But if she gives birth to a daughter, she will be impure for 2 weeks. In chapter 13, we learned about skin disease like leprosy on the body, in homes, and mold on fabrics, and what it represents. We learned that leprosy was caused by anger, murmuring, disobedience, envy, and pride, etc. Little friends, let's not forget that we must not let ourselves be carried away by all these emotions. We must not allow them to control us. In chapter 14, we learned about what the purification process should be like for a person who was sick with leprosy, and the instructions about the leprosy in homes. If on the 7th day the leprosy in the house had spread on the stones and clay, the house will be torn down. In chapter 15, we learned about discharges causing uncleanness and the process to be purified. These impurities affected the chair where the person sat, the bed where the person laid, or any object the person touched. If the impure man heals, he would wait 7 days, then wash his clothes and bathe with running water. Now, if the woman's flow stopped, she would count 7 days to become clean. After the 8th day, she would present an offering to the Father. Remember, little friends, every impurity was caused by disobedience, which results in sin, and this separates us from the Father. We must be very careful not to dishonor Him. In chapter 16 to 20, the Eternal calls us all to be holy because He is holy. In chapter 16, we learned what happened to Aharon's sons, Nadab and Abihu, when they offered unauthorized fire to the Eternal. We also learned that because of this act, the Father established the day of Yom Kippur, which is the day of covering. Remember that this only covered the sins of the people, but now through Yeshua, our Messiah, we are washed and purified. In chapter 17, we learned about the provision of eating blood because the life of the creature is in the blood. If anyone hunts an animal or bird, he must shed the blood on the ground and cover it. In chapter 18, we learned the importance of not imitating the world. Remember, we must not love the world or anything in the world. If someone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him, for nothing in the world comes from the Father. This includes impure physical relationships, which the Father detests and are an abomination to Him. In chapter 19, we learned that all these instructions mentioned in the book of Vayikra are given to all men, women, and children. including the instructions of respecting our parents, keeping Shabbat, and showing respect to others. We also learn that it prohibits the mixture of plants and animals. In chapter 20, we learned about the punishment for sin, and it starts by saying that any foreigner or native who sacrifices any of his children to Moloch is put to death. And the provision to turn to mediums and spiritists, the Father would set his face against anyone who practices magic. This chapter also reminds us of the importance to consecrate ourselves, not to live according to the customs of the nations, but to be holy because the Father our Elohim is holy. This has been my little manna for today. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Thank you, Mia. Shalom, little friends. Greetings from Jeremiah. Let's review what we learned from chapter 21 to 27. In chapter 21 to 25, we learned the requirements for holiness from Yeshua, our great minister. Our Almighty Elohim gave instructions to the minister to remain holy. For example, the minister were not allowed to cut their hair, shave their beards, and cut their bodies. The Father ordered them to be kedoshim and not profane his name because the quality of their service was for the holy of the holies. We learned that the ministers had a great responsibility with what they did, not only how they did it, but also how they presented themselves to do it. It should not have any impurity. Also, any korban that was offered with a defect will not be accepted on their behalf. Instead, they had to be without defect or a blemish in order to be accepted. We learn in chapter 23 about the holy requirements. We learn in chapter 23 about the holy appointments the Father established, which are Shabbat, Pesach, Matzot, Bikurim, Shavuot, Yom Teruah, Yom HaKippurim, and Sukkot. Here, the Father teaches us to serve Him correctly through His holy appointments, as we know they have a very important prophetic value related to the plan of redemption through Yeshua, our great minister. We also learn about a blasphemer who was stoned to death for cursing the name of Elohim. At chapter 27, we learn that the Father also takes care of His creation, and for Him it is important that the land also rests. In verse 4, we learn that in the 7th year, the land is to have a year of Shabbat rest, a Shabbat to Elohim, for the land belongs to the Father, and we only reside in the land as foreigners and strangers. The Father continued to exhort his people to choose to be obedient and do well in the land. In chapter 27, in chapter 26 to 27, we learned that the obedience brings blessing and the disobedience brings curse. For example, in chapter 26, we learn about the blessings for obedience. We see a great promise the Father gives to his people if they obey. And verse 12, it says, I will walk among you, and be your Elohim, and you will be my people. But we also learn about the consequences for disobedience, the consequences for those who reject and won't hear his instructions. At chapter 27, we learn that if a person had the desire to give their life or something as a service for the Father, but they couldn't because they were not from the tribe of Levi, a price was set for them, and it was given and used for the things of the sanctuary. Everyone had the opportunity to serve. Well, little friends, we have learned so much from this book. Vayikra is a book of instructions that teaches us how to consecrate our lives to be able to live a holy life for Elohim, because he is holy. Hasak, hasak, little friends. Let's make an effort to be brave and serve the Eternal Father. And to review this delivery, we have a PDF with learnings from this delivery. Remember that we will leave the link below in the descriptions with the instructions for you to do it with the help of mom and dad. And don't forget to share your photos and videos of the process and its results. Little friends, we have a great surprise. For the conclusion of the book of Vayikra, we have a memory game for you. We hope you learn and review it. Have fun. Little friends, we now say goodbye. Well, it is Shabbat, a day to rest and dedicated to the study of Torah. Shabbat Shalom.
Let the children come and come to Him. With the Master Yeshua we are going to learn. Let the children come and come to Him. Go and show for art and obedience to Him. God, the kingdom of heaven of children's is. Let us sing, let us sing, let us sing, God Almighty. Come to serve, that you're nothing like Him. In His Torah to walk and never depart, to learn as a child and never lose my faith. Cause the kingdom of heaven of children's is. Children come and come to Him. With the Master Yeshua we are going to learn. Let the children come and come to Him. Don't show for art and obedience to Him. God, the kingdom of heaven of children's is. Let us sing, let us sing, let us sing to Adonai.